have our designee, ruling elder Matt Fender.
That's good.
I wish I could think of a witty comeback to that, but I got nothing. Fathers and brothers, Mr. Moderator, ruling elder Matt Fender, James River Presbytery. RPR voted overwhelmingly with a single dissenting vote to cite Metro New York Presbytery to appear before the SJC. The Assembly should pass that recommendation and reject the attempt to reduce it to a mere exception of substance. We make this recommendation to you, brethren, because in reviewing the minutes, we discovered that the Presbytery failed to address a gross and egregious violation of Scripture, which is prohibited, among other places, in 1 Timothy 2:12. So what's this about, in case that hasn't been clear from the debate? This is not a case of a woman leading a small group or even teaching an adult Sunday school class. What happened was that a PCA church within the bounds of Metro New York Presbytery invited a woman who was putatively ordained by the Episcopal Church, so-called, to preach during its Sunday morning worship service. RPR is entitled to look beyond the minutes based upon BCO 40-4, and a bit of internet research reveals that the woman in question claims to have 22 years experience in parish ministry. The Presbytery took up the issue in response to concerns raised from outside the Presbytery. That's what their minutes say. Significantly, the Metro New York Presbytery had its shepherding committee, which it calls the shepherding team, investigate the matter. Written responses to questions were received from the church and are included in the Presbytery minutes. The church in question believes it did nothing wrong, explaining that it believes that this exposition of the Scriptures by this woman ordained in the Episcopal Church, which occurred during Sunday worship prior to the administration of the Lord's Supper, they think it's permissible because they called it a Bible study rather than a sermon. Presbytery failed to correct this gross error. A motion from the New York Metro Shepherding Committee for further action was defeated on a voice vote during their Presbytery meeting. Brothers, in our egalitarian age, in which the very concepts of manhood and womanhood are under constant attack, it is critical that our church maintain her faithful witness about the God-ordained roles of men and women in the church. Allowing a woman to preach on Sunday morning is serious error. We owe it to our brothers and sisters to immediately correct this error. It is an error that should have been redressed by the Presbytery. The General Assembly has a constitutional duty of review and control. Our presbyteries are the first line of supervision over our churches. But brothers, they're not the final word. And where, as here, a presbytery has failed to correct an egregious violation of Scripture and of the Constitution, the GA must act. Now to the procedural point. It has been argued that a 40-5 citation to appear before the SJC is only proper if RPR and the General Assembly have previously found an exception of substance and received an unsatisfactory response back from the Presbytery. While that is certainly one path, and that path is spelled out in RAO 1610C, it is clearly not the only path. BCO 40-5, which of course is in the BCO and therefore takes precedence over the RAO, because the BCO is our Constitution, it specifically spells out that the GA can and should act directly, and in fact must in some circumstances. The first paragraph of 40-5 starts like this: when any court having appellate jurisdiction shall receive a credible report with respect to the court next below of any important delinquency or grossly unconstitutional proceeding of such court. Now here it is: the first step shall be to cite the court alleged to have offended to appear before the court having appellate jurisdiction. It doesn't say the first step is to issue an exception of substance. It says the first step is to cite the court. And so, brothers, I put to you that the correct interpretation of this is that one path to get to the SJC is an unsatisfactory response to an exception of substance. But if the error that RPR identifies and puts before us as the General Assembly rises to the level of an important delinquency or grossly unconstitutional proceedings, it is in fact mandatory for the Assembly to cite the Presbytery. Now, we heard from a previous speaker something about the intent of 40-5 being added to the book, and I respectfully disagree, fathers and brothers. I would direct you to Franklin Pierce Ramsey's exposition of the form of government, which is over 100 years old, and there is substantially similar language discussed in Ramsey's commentary, and his analysis, I'm not going to read it to you, is consistent with the view that the committee urges today. Brothers, reducing this egregious matter to an exception of substance will do nothing more than waste a year and delay the resolution of the matter. The Presbytery has already had an opportunity to investigate, and it has in fact done so. Presbytery committed serious error, an important delinquency at least, when it failed to take action to correct the problem. RPR is taking no position on any sanction, but notably, it might well be limited to something as simple as an admonition. Therefore, brothers, I urge you to pass the recommendation of RPR and cite Metro New York Presbytery to appear before the SJC. Please defeat the substitute and pass the main. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are now at the point of voting. Again, you will hear me do this all week. I'm going to make it very clear to you what we are voting on. You have before you a main motion, which comes from your committee. You have a substitute motion, which has come from the floor. These both exist at the same time. So what is before you now is, shall the substitute become the main? So if you wish the substitute to eventually prevail, you must vote yes here for the substitute to become the main. If you are against the substitute and for the main motion, you would vote against the substitute, so it will fail, and then we will proceed to the main motion. I hope that is clear. Voting is now open. Is there a point? Let's just take another vote. One.
Mr. Moderator, teaching elder David Gilbert, in this area over here is just a little slower. So I think just a few more seconds would allow it rather than taking another vote.
Okay, so make sure that you vote when I say voting is open. Actually, when we're getting to the point of voting closing, I'm actually giving you 3 extra seconds. You will note that. So I'm trying to accommodate. I would suggest, based on last night, if you're having any difficulty, stand up and point at the screens. Be have any more of these challenges. So I think we've got the votes are in. You want to... That's correct. Okay, so now I can say voting is closed. Okay, I'm going to rule that the substitute fails, and to help the brothers, hope that everyone's vote was counted. Is it
Ruling elder Andrew Augenstein, it's not working.
your voting device? You can turn immediately to a vote on the main motion.